Welcome to the Freedom Through Divorce podcast. May Jesus Christ be the chief cornerstone and foundation of Amanda Nicole Consulting and the Freedom Through Divorce School. May His truth and love be illuminated in everything that we do. So I was talking to God and I'm like, okay, God, I get what you're saying so far, but you know, right now, based on my understanding, it sounds to me like you're saying your people are going to be liberated, but then they're going to come after other Christians. If the imps at the top of the circle thing represent other Christians that are persecuting the ones that were inside the circle thing, at the end you got those people cutting off the heads of other Christians. I was like, that sounds like that wouldn't be like something that you would say, God. So can you help my understanding? And so this is when he started to explain to me. He's like, okay, in the dream that I gave you, the people in the circle thing, they were people, they were Christians. He said, but you saw that the imps at the top of the wall were not people, they were imps. And he said, so what I'm saying is that I'm getting ready to raise up those people that have been persecuted by the religious spirit that has been, keeping them down with this erroneous teaching. And so when they raise up, they're going to have the boldness to go after that spirit. They're not going after God's people. They're not going after other Christians. They're going after that spirit, but they're going to go after that spirit with the same boldness and no nonsense, not take no mess attitude that David had. And they're not going to take any prisoners, and they're going to expose that spirit for what it is. He's basically saying that they've been held down for so long, and the whole point of them being held down, outside of the fact that the enemy is just a jerk and he just wants to steal, kill, and destroy, and that's his MO, but it's also been because he's wanting to suppress the truth, and the truth is in them. And so he's saying that I'm getting ready to free them. I'm getting ready to liberate them. And that truth is going to come spilling out with a boldness that is going to completely expose and completely just annihilate that spirit. And so he's saying that as they begin to do that, as he begins to speak to them and they begin to speak out and they begin to expose that spirit, it's going to be a separating where you're going to have some people who are going to repent. They're going to realize that they have been used by that spirit, that they have been deceived by that spirit, that they've been bamboozled by that spirit, and that they have been unknowingly oppressing God's people. And when they realize that, based on that truth that God is going to bring through these people, they're going to repent. They're going to repent, and they're going to turn, and they're going to say, God, I'm sorry. And they're going to go and they're going to stop oppressing God's people in the area of divorce. But you also have those people who, at the same time, when they hear the truth, they're going to turn away from it, and they're not going to repent. They're going to reject it. And so what's going to happen is that it's kind of like when Saul was king, and you had those people who really loved Saul. And even when God told the prophet that he had rejected Saul, he was weeping for, a long time. He really was weeping over just the fact that this great leader had fallen, and that God was rejecting him. And so God literally had to tell that prophet to, listen, it is what it is. You need to move on. But what's going to happen is that when the truth comes to the believers who are going to reject it, when God rejected Saul, Saul was a king of the people. And so he had a lot of people that really loved him. And when God had departed from him, there were people that were still following him after God had moved on. And so, just think about all of the army and the people that were fighting with Saul when he was chasing after David, and they were on the wrong side. And as Saul was on his way towards destruction, they were following him, and so God is basically telling us that it's the same thing, where people are going to reject that message, and they're going to, whenever they hear someone say anything close to that message, mind you, this is the message that God is sending. And so when they hear people say things that are about that message, they're going to reject it, and they're going to reject them. And by rejecting them, they're going to be rejecting truth, and they're going to be choosing to align themselves with lies. And so what's going to happen is, this message is not going to just go to individual Christians. It's going to be going to leadership. There's leadership that is over ministries that are oppressing their own people in this area, because they don't realize that the teaching that they're teaching, that this is a spirit, it's a religious spirit that is teaching heresy, and it's oppressing God's people, but they don't know that. Okay, so there's leadership that they're going to hear the message, and they're going to turn, and they're going to say, I'm not doing this anymore, and they're going to turn. The problem is that when the people who don't want to receive that message, when they hear those leaders do that, they're going to be done with them. They're going to be like, I don't want nothing to do with them. They don't know what they're talking about. And so what's going to happen is that where these leaders are hearing God, and they're feeding the sheep from God, and that's why they're going to turn, is because they do love God, and they do have a heart for God, and they do want to help God's people. You're going to have people that are going to turn away, and they're going to run towards people that are saying, continuing to say what they want to hear. And so they're basically going to be choosing to be in bondage, choosing to follow lies, choosing not to follow God. And we all know that there's nothing good that comes from that road. Nothing. If you make a choice to go away that God's not going, there's nothing good that comes from that. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Subscribe and follow us so that you don't miss the next part of this prophetic message. If this message resonates with you or with your spirit, please share it. If you want to dig deeper into this subject, please visit www.freedomthroughdivorce.thinkific.com. That's www.freedomthroughdivorce.thinkific.com. Thinkific is spelled THINKIFIC. There, you can purchase the authorized divorce course. Thank you, and may God bless you.